All right, good evening. Welcome to Leftovers and Lessons. We're not going to have any food today, and obviously we want to talk a little bit about George Floyd and all that is going on, and quite honestly didn't feel like it just didn't feel right chowing down and talking about this whole situation. Do want to welcome you and just hope we can have a conversation and simply be together in the midst of all that's going on right now. We definitely grieve the loss of George Floyd together. It's been just a hard day in so many ways. And being somebody that went through the 92 riots a little bit more closely, it's like nothing's changed, right? It's been a painful day for so many. Everybody I've talked to, it's just a painful day. And in many ways, a lot of us just, it's so painful we don't want to even listen and watch the news because it's just that painful. But the reality is, I think in a lot of ways, for those of us who can choose to listen or not listen, the reality is that there are too many who have no choice, right? Who have no choice, who this is shoved in their faces every day. They live in it every day, this kind of injustice. And even right now, there's such a firestorm and everybody is up in arms, and hopefully there will be changes. But the news moves on a lot of times, as we have seen, and social media gets on another topic, and yet there's so many that continue to live in the systems that we have. Do want to welcome everybody. It's great to see the names that are popping up. Today I just want to pose the question that I've been asking for the last few days. What can I do? What can I do? And as I'm trying to answer that question, there's so many different thoughts and feelings, right? What can I do? I'm sure you've been asking that question. What can I do? And another way I just want to give us freedom to ask this question too is, what might help? What might help? Right? Something that I've been thinking about, is just continuing to process and understand and learn and figure out what's the best way to help. I think a lot of us are wrestling with this question. So tonight, I want to just invite us to answer that question. What can I do to help? How are you answering that question? Or just answer what might help. Just share what you think might help the situation as you process, as you understand, as you pray. How is God leading? And what are some possibilities of things that we can do to help? So go ahead and please do feel free to comment. I know it's a crazy time. It's almost scary to comment because the reality is we feel so much. We don't know what to do. We don't know if what we say or do will be taken the wrong way. But here's something that I do want to share is I want to invite us to do something. To do something. I was meeting with my small group today, and we have people with different perspectives even in that group. But I just encouraged everybody in that group, do something. Do something. Because many are doing something, and that's great to see. And that's great to see. I just got a text a friend asking me where this live event is. Hopefully they'll find it. But many are doing something more than I've seen before. And then there are many who are criticizing what people are doing. And even though we see so many that are out there doing something, and I think that the most of us are just paralyzed. There are some clear things that are not helpful. There are ways that people are moving to do something, and the majority of people, a lot of us, are just paralyzed, and we just don't know what to do. And I just want to encourage us tonight to do something. Do something. The reality is, if I can just speak on this a little bit, that there is a lot of criticism of what people are doing. And I just want to invite us to, first of all, grieve in this kind of situation. I think that's the first thing that we are called to do, to just grieve. Grieve what is going on. Somebody recently shared with me that they felt empowered to walk in the power of God because their heart is broken. And I think that is so powerful. I think it's so important for us right now to just grieve first and foremost. To grieve and have that heart that is broken. To allow God to break our hearts. Because I do believe that's prepares us, that our hearts being broken is preparation for kingdom work, for God to use us for his purposes, for good purposes. So again, just invite us to grieve, and then grace, that we might be able to extend grace to each other during this crazy time as we seek to do something in different ways. I do invite us to extend grace, because I see so much criticism. Oh, you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't do this because of this, or there is, and I understand we have to be open to hearing criticism of things we're doing, but there's no one way that's better or the best way. I think we have to look at all different ways for us to do something. Instead of giving certain values to it, this is not an either or situation in my mind. It's a both and. It's whatever we can do to help in different ways. And I just hope we can extend grace to people who might respond and try to help in different ways. So extend grace after the grieving. That this is in many ways more than just an either or, but a both and of what can we all do in the different ways to help. I obviously feel strongly about that. And I just want to encourage boldness, because in the midst of all of this, it's so easy to just shut down. I want to encourage myself in the midst of just with you all for boldness. Boldness to do something, right? To do something that might help. Here's what went through my mind, and because I want to get myself and many of us unstuck in some ways out of this paralysis. I really do believe we have to be willing. We have to be willing to get it wrong. We have to be willing to get it wrong, or do something that's not helpful. I think we have to be willing to do that. We have to be willing to be corrected right away, and be challenged, for the sake of the greater good, that we'd be willing to go through that. This great friend of mine, when I asked him, there's so many things to do, what should I do? He gave me this, actually he's watching right now, but he said, just get the car rolling, Ken. Just get the car rolling, and then you can steer it better. And sometimes we're so stuck and trying to find the perfect way to do something. Let's just get the ball rolling, and then be humble enough to hear and listen as the Lord guides us. Kristen, thank you for being so honest, right? I was embarrassed and you go into something else. I'm sorry. That's great. Just acknowledging that we just don't know is huge. It is so huge. but being willing to make mistakes or get things wrong, and you know that some of you who are on Facebook, or there was this whole blackout that we're doing today, and then I posted last night, and I did the hashtag Black Lives Matter, and then the first thing I see when I wake up is, you need to take that down because it's muddling up, it's not helping, it's disrupting things, and those kind of things, we just have to course correct and continue to do what we can in a lot of ways. Being willing to be embarrassed for the sake of greater things. And here's some thoughts that I wrote down. Bringing justice and change, addressing evil, and bringing the kingdom of heaven is worth a little embarrassment. It's worth getting things wrong sometimes. Trying to bring justice and uprooting evil and bringing the kingdom of heaven here on this earth that we know should be is worth a little embarrassment. And this kind of work does take sacrifice. If we know anything of Jesus's life, of what he did to give us life and bring the kingdom of heaven near, it does take sacrifice. It does take pain. It takes a lot of being misunderstood. But I invite us to boldness, to do something, to live for something greater than our own face, than our own looking good, or whatever it is that keeps us from moving forward. So I have, if you can, just write down some ideas of things that we can do. What is something we can do? What is something I can do? Make it personal. You know, some areas in the different Facebook posts on racism recently. Thank you, Don, just to utter these words. Yeah, and to really understand where Black Lives Matter comes from. Please, let's all research on why it's important to say those words, Black Lives Matter, in the midst of this time. That's really powerful. That's something, even for myself, I'm still learning the importance of that, and have done some kind of reading up on it and learning. I did talk to, here's one thing that very practical for us to do. Yes, donating, Sylvia, it's something we can do. It's something we can do. I talked to somebody in our own church today, and they said, you know, one of the great things we can do is to teach the children early. To teach the children early. And then for those of us who are older, and she said in our 40s and 50s, and probably older, to unlearn. So to educate the younger generations and to unlearn. That's something that we can do. That's something we can do. There are great movies out there that really help us understand. And here's a few movies: Selma, The Hate You Give, Harriet, True Justice, Just Mercy. I mentioned this movie. Actually, my family is planning to watch this movie tonight because we heard that it was good. I haven't watched it. But I did share with a friend that has seen it, and he said that movie is just so good. So please, you know, think about different movies, find out movies, and just watch as a family. Of course, appropriately, it depends on your children. Reach out to African American friends, you know, and that goes to something else that I do want to talk about, but movies and then books, of course. There are so many books that we can read. Bill Mefford, who is on here, I want to give a shout out to my friend Bill. I love you. I'm so thankful for your prophetic heart and all that you continue to embody and do. He said that he was going to be on here. I invite you to share The Innocence Files on Netflix. Any books, Bill, please feel free to write down any books that you think might be helpful for us to understand. Go ahead, Bill. I appreciate you so much. He's a guy that's we've walked together ever since seminary, and we're just trying to figure out this thing and trying to honor God in living for the kingdom. And I love you. I love you. One of the things that Bill has actually taught me, and he wrote a great book. Bill, go ahead and write the title of your book in case somebody wants to read that. I think it's powerful, and it's all about the power of building relationships. If we are going to make systemic change, we have to build relationships with people that are being oppressed or the others. It is so important for us to build relationships. Something that Bill has taught me is that when we build relationships, we finally understand what they are actually going through. It helps us understand. It helps us actually fight for people in the ways that are actually helpful for them. And if we build relationships instead of just doing one cause after another, if we build relationships, we continue to fight and live on other people's behalf instead of it just being a one-time thing. The Fig Tree Revolution. Actually, our missions and outreach committee, we're reading that book together right now. And we had already started reading it, and then all of this happened. And so it's timely. Unfortunately, it's a reality that was there. And so just invite us to build relationships. That's something that we can do. Build relationships with people that are other, people that are different than us. That's one thing that I've learned, and it is powerful. It is very true. Those people, I see Andy Placido on here, people who are continuing to help with Sunday suppers. Some people might look, and I'm putting you on the spot, Ann, but people might look at afar and say, wow, she's such a wonderful person, and you are. But, Ann has built relationships with the people of Sunday Supper. They're not just these faceless people. They are friends. We build relationships, and we find out what would actually help these individuals. And so building relationships are huge if we're going to really help make changes. Something that's a little bit more personal, but it's very helpful, is the power of an apology. I know it might sound weird. What good is an apology when it's already done and those kind of. But I tell you, that comes out of my own personal experience of standing on the street and in Kentucky and having this car go by and these racial slurs just yelled out at me, and my white friend from Tennessee just turning to me just with a grieved look on her face and saying, Ken, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Ken. And my gut reaction and my initial reaction was, why are you saying sorry? You didn't do anything. You're my friend. I mean, we're tight, it's those guys. But I tell you, when I went back to my room, her apology meant so much to my heart and soul. It makes a difference. When we are somehow identified with a perpetrator, for us to apologize, even if we didn't do it, is so powerful. It is healing to people's hearts. It is connecting to people's lives. It helps me. It healed me and helped me open myself and connect even deeper with people. An apology is powerful. Something that comes out of relationships is that we learn to fight for others. And this is something that has been on my heart for quite some time. I've just observed we fight for our people. A lot of times we fight for our own. And how far has that got us? It's got us somewhere. But so many times we fight for our own people. And I'm such an idealist. I sit there thinking, what if we fought for other people? What if people were fighting for others? And we put as much effort in fighting for others? Because here's what I do see and I've experienced when it actually happens. When we fight for others, there is this kingdom power that's unleashed when we fight for others. And I think in this time, I think this is the time for us to fight for others and unleash the kingdom power of transformation to our systems. If we truly do want to see systems changed, it's the others that need to fight for the others, right? Yeah, I just think that's so powerful. And that, again, if we could just fight for our own, or we can fight for others and truly bring the kingdom of heaven. You know how powerful it is if a black person fights for Koreans, or Korean people fight for black people, or just cross ethnicities fighting for one another. That is the kingdom of heaven. I invite us to do that. We have that potential. Every one of us can fight for another, whatever that is, or whoever that might be. Whoever God helps us be bold and open to building a relationship with others, to fight for others. That's something we can do. Public witness, obviously, unfortunately, it turns violent, as we have seen, but there is so much power to public witness, to marches and vigils. And I invite us to not be afraid, but to join in where we can. Bill Mefford, gosh, I'm really putting him on the spot, but I'm Facebook friends with him, and he, in the midst of this pandemic, he has gone to marches and things like that, but he also, just a few days ago, each one of his family of 4, just lit a candle and stood outside their home and did a little family prayer vigil for exactly 8 minutes. And 46 seconds. And that's powerful. That's something every one of us can do. Public witness. I do want to invite you to continue to just share ideas. Maybe even after this is over, if you watch this afterwards and you have ideas of something we can do, I invite you to write it in the comment, because we can just keep reading these things. And maybe we can find, each one of us can find something we can do. I don't know what time it is. It's about 6:25. But I guess I do want to share a story. And this comes more of a personal healing story for myself. And it is a guiding light for me on how I can bring healing to other people. Many of you know I grew up in America, but my grandparents and my older uncles and aunts grew up under the occupation in Japan. And growing up, there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain of, just a lot of the horrific stuff that they wouldn't even tell me. All my older uncles and aunts all spoke Japanese fluently. Their names were taken away. They at this point of their lives, when I was young, they kind of joked about what your Japanese name was and those kind of things. But it was horrific, and there was so much pain in the hearts, and sometimes we didn't even realize the kind of pain that was deep in my own heart. But my second pastorate, I was appointed to a Japanese church, and I tell you, all I did was I shared stories. I shared just personal background, and I wasn't feeling a deep heaviness or anything. I shared stories of how my grandfather was a pastor, and he was imprisoned in the occupation, and those kind of things. And he went ahead and I just shared family background because I was just getting to know my congregation a little bit. I wanted to share about my grandfather, of his faithfulness to God, because he was a pastor. But after my sharing, the Japanese language pastor, without many people seeing, just came up to me, and she had tears in her eyes. And she said, "I just want to say, I'm sorry." And I tell you, there was so much power in that apology that it brought so much healing to my heart and soul. The power of an apology. And then we did this memorial service. And we used to do this every year, and we asked people to bring a picture of somebody that they valued and honored and wanted to honor. I brought a picture of my grandfather. And we had it there, and then we all light tea candles, kind of like this. And everybody lights tea candles, and then goes, at some point in the service, we go and put it next to the person, the picture that we brought. And so I lit the candle, and I put it next to my grandfather. And then in the quietness of the sanctuary, this pastor, Reverend Yumiko Miyagawa, she came up to me and whispered in my ear, "Can I put a candle next to your grandfather?" And that touched me and moved me so much. And of course I said yes. So healing when we're able to give grievance and apology. So empowering to value one another. And I invite us to consider how we can do these things we've mentioned, to build relationships, to continue to learn and understand, to teach the young to unlearn what we've been taught that we know is not of the Lord, is not of the kingdom of God, to fight for others, to do what we can. So I do want to do this. I do want to light this candle. And I do want to grieve the loss of George Floyd. He should be alive today. He should be with us today. We grieve his loss. We value his life. And we do want to say, Black lives matter. Black lives matter. I pray we do something. Let's do something. God bless you.